And welcome, I'm Andy Miocha and you are watching A News. Here are the headlines. US President Donald Trump says he wants a fair trade deal with China. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says a ceasefire with Russia could begin the moment Kremlin agrees to it. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vows retaliation for the Houthi missile strike on Tel Aviv's airport. Thank you for tuning in. US President Donald Trump said his top trade priority is securing a fair deal with China. Repeating the claims that Beijing is taking advantage of Washington, Trump said there are no plans for him to speak to Chinese President Xi Jinping this week.
US President Donald Trump on Sunday said the US was meeting with many countries, including China, on trade deals, and his main priority with China was to secure a fair trade deal. Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One that he had no plans to speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping this week, but US officials were speaking with Chinese officials about different things.
Well, you know, I want a fair deal with China, but China's been ripping us off for many years, so maybe some things should be thought about, you know, a little bit of retribution. China's been ripping us off for many years, ever since they started. To me, I think it was the worst thing that Richard Nixon ever did. And it was Nixon, you know, he's the one that got it started. Thank you very much, everybody.
Trump also emphasized that while the US is negotiating with many countries, he ultimately plans to establish his own deals. He stated that the United States is no longer engaging with China, claiming that the tariffs are so high they effectively prevent any meaningful trade, which he argued is saving the US billions of dollars. Earlier this year, the US finalized a new wave of tariffs targeting Chinese electric vehicles, batteries, solar panels, and critical minerals, citing the need to protect American industries. In response, China imposed retaliatory tariffs of up to 125% on a range of US goods. Both sides have hinted at the possibility of reopening trade talks, but no formal negotiations have been announced yet. The retaliatory measures are already weighing heavily on bilateral trade and raising concerns over broader economic impacts.
Taking to social media yesterday, Donald Trump said all movies produced outside the United States will be hit with a 100% tariff. Trump wrote on his Truth Social that he authorized the tariffs to save the American movie industry he says is dying a very fast death. He added that foreign countries are offering incentives to attract filmmakers and studios out of the US, calling it a national security threat. Donald Trump has also ordered the reopening of Alcatraz, the infamous island prison near San Francisco. It has been closed for more than 60 years and is now a popular touristic attraction.
US President Donald Trump is directing the federal government to rebuild and reopen Alcatraz, the high-security prison on an island in San Francisco Bay that was shut down more than 60 years ago. In a post on his Truth Social platform, Trump called for it to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders. Alcatraz was considered America's most secure prison given the island location, frigid waters, and strong currents. No successful escapes were ever officially recorded from Alcatraz. It operated from 1934 to 1963 and held some of the most notorious criminals in American history, including Al Capone and George Machine Gun Kelly. The prison was closed due to crumbling infrastructure and the high cost of operation, with everything from food to fuel needing to be transported by boat. Since then, it has become a major tourist destination managed by the National Park Service and is protected as a National Historic Landmark. Trump said he came up with the idea after growing frustrated with what he called radicalized judges insisting on due process for deportees. He described Alcatraz as a symbol of law and order with, in his words, quite a history. A spokesperson for the Bureau of Prisons confirmed the agency would follow presidential orders, but did not comment on how reopening Alcatraz could be achieved, especially given that the island is no longer under its control.
A ceasefire with Russia is possible the moment Kremlin agrees to it and could begin even today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said during his visit to Prague. His comments come hours after he rejected the Russian president's declaration of a 3-day truce in honor of Victory Day, denouncing it as a theatrical show.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated on Sunday that a full ceasefire with Russia could be achieved at any moment and called on Kyiv's allies to intensify pressure on Moscow to help make it a reality. Speaking at a joint press conference in Prague alongside Czech President Petr Pavel, Zelensky suggested that a 30-day ceasefire would offer a genuine opportunity for diplomacy to succeed.
We believe that ceasefire is possible at any moment, even starting today, and should last for at least 30 days to give diplomacy a real chance.
Zelensky dismissed recent Russian statements about a partial ceasefire as disingenuous, citing a surge in assaults on Ukrainian positions.
For example, in the past days, they have been saying that they want some partial ceasefire, but you should know that number of assaults these days was the highest in the past months. They conducted more than 200 assaults. If anyone still believes them, they can test it.
He reiterated support for a US-backed proposal for a full and unconditional ceasefire and stressed the importance of Western unity. On military cooperation, Zelensky praised Prague's ammunition initiative and said Ukraine expects to receive 1.8 million shells in 2025.
We count that cooperation will be as effective as it was last year. Tomorrow we will hold meetings with Czech defense companies, and we are working on more details.
Meanwhile, Ukraine faced a fresh wave of Russian drone strikes on Sunday. At least 11 people, including 2 children, were injured in Kyiv, and multiple fires broke out in residential buildings. Ukraine's emergency services deployed 76 firefighters as falling debris sparked fires in Obolonsky and Sviatoshinsky districts. The military said 69 out of 165 drones were shot down, and dozens more were neutralized via electronic warfare. There was no immediate comment from Moscow.
Georgia Simeon, the hard-right presidential candidate in Romania, won the first round of the election with some 40% of the vote. Simeon, an avid Trump fan who opposes sending military aid to Ukraine, came ahead of the liberal mayor of Bucharest, Nicu Șordan, who won around 21%. The presidential runoff is set for May 18th. The original presidential election held 6 months ago that saw the victory of a far-right candidate was annulled by the country's top court over alleged Russian interference and campaign fraud. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to retaliate against Yemen's Houthis and Iran at a time and place of his country's choosing. This comes after a Houthi missile struck the Tel Aviv airport. The Houthis then announced plans to impose an aerial blockade on Israel by repeatedly targeting its airports.
Speaking in Jerusalem alongside Cyprus President Nikos Christodoulides, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the attack near Israel's main airport. He said that Israel would respond to the Houthis and issued a direct warning to Tehran.
As far as the trade routes, obviously we're being challenged. The whole world is being challenged by the Houthis, including in the dastardly attack they did today near Ben Gurion Airport. We will not tolerate it. We will take very strong action against them. And we always remember that they act with their patron Iran's direction and support. We will do what we need to do to take care of our security, to respond effectively, and to give Iran a due warning that this cannot continue.
The comments followed a missile launched by Yemen's Houthi rebels that struck near Ben Gurion International Airport on Sunday, landing close to a parking lot by Terminal 3. The impact triggered panic inside the terminal and briefly halted all air traffic. 4 people were injured by the blast and 2 others were hurt while seeking shelter. The incident marks a rare and alarming breach of Israeli airspace. Local officials displayed the impact site, pointing to a crater described as tens of meters deep and wide. The Houthis claimed responsibility, describing the attack as retaliation for Israel's intensified military campaign in Gaza. In a later statement, the group threatened to enforce a comprehensive aerial blockade by continuing to target Israeli airports. Airport operations were temporarily suspended and sirens sounded across several regions. While flights later resumed, several major international airlines, including Lufthansa, Air France, Delta and ITA Airways, cancelled their upcoming services to Tel Aviv. According to Israeli media, both the long-range Arrow missile defense system and the US-supplied THAAD battery failed to intercept the projectile. Military and intelligence officials are now investigating the breach in air defenses. Netanyahu is expected to meet with senior ministers and defense chiefs to determine Israel's next move.
Israel's security cabinet has approved a plan to expand its military offensive against Hamas, which includes the capture of Gaza and the holding of its territory, according to an Israeli official. It is also set to include moving the 2.1 million Palestinians in Gaza towards the south, which could worsen the humanitarian crisis. The cabinet is said to have approved a plan to deliver humanitarian aid through private companies. The UN and other aid agencies have said the proposal would be a breach of basic humanitarian principles and that they will not cooperate. Hamas said Israel's proposal amounted to political blackmail. Iran's defense ministry unveiled the country's latest solid-fueled ballistic missile, state TV reported. TV showed the Qasem Basir ballistic missile during an interview with the country's defense minister. He said it includes improvements in both guidance and maneuverability to overcome layers of defense and easily bypass anti-ballistic defense systems. The missile was most recently tested on April 17th. Back to our main story, the US-China trade war. To talk on the latest, we're joined by political analyst Enrique Cosero, coming to us from Madrid. Welcome, thank you so much for joining us. Now, we've heard Trump saying over the weekend he will lower the tariffs on China at some point. He said he has no plans to speak to Xi Jinping this week, but that the talks are underway between the countries. On the other side, the news circulating on China's social media says that the US has reached out to seek negotiations. How much would you say that optics and not being the first to initiate talks play a role here?
First and foremost, thank you for having me here. And about your question, China got, there is a kind of win-to-win or lose-to-lose, or as von Neumann said, it's a zero game, right? China got their storage kind of full, and they know that if they keep producing whatever the exports are going to need, and the United States don't buy at the same time, those data storage and those facilities are going to be full, and for any company, no matter what, it was that company is in China, is in the United States, in the UK, or whatever in the world, they're gonna lose money because they already got things that are being made, they're completely done, and they got no exit to the market. So in that way, China is losing. But in the other way, the United States, they know that they can't get whatever they've been needing for the last year. So they need to get this sum zero game in order to get along with the economic and the commerce environment that they're already in, and that Donald Trump is trying to break or is trying to change. So for me here, the most how to say this, the most curious thing in here is that neither Xi Jinping or Donald Trump want to talk to each other. It's a lower level agreements, it's a lower level talks that are gonna take place, which means nobody is right now publicly willing to leave or willing to show that they have some weaknesses or what the strengths are.
As you've mentioned, the factory capacities, we also saw the U.S. economy shrunk in the first quarter. Now, how do you see this entire trade war playing out? What could be an option towards resolution that's acceptable to both sides? Are these those low-level talks?
Weeks ago, I said here in your channel, afterwards your invitation, that I thought that, and I'm still thinking that at some point all these measures and all these goals that Donald Trump want to achieve were in some way to collapsing. I mean, probably in no way Donald Trump can get all the things that he wants. And right now, I think that's, as I said, knowing that there is no optimal, in another way, the only optimal way out to whatever is happening right now is a sum-zero game. I mean, everybody has to win. Everybody has to win, or everybody has to lose. But either way, they have to win or they have to lose, or they're going to win, they're going to lose in the same amount of risk and in the same amount of whatever they want to put some risk on the issue. I mean, there is no way that a transition without any kind of collapse will happen. Right now, I don't know. Maybe we're expecting some surprises, but I don't think there are going to be any surprises. But right now, if they want to adjust their commerce agreement, they gotta adjust it in a way that they win or they lose in the same amount.
Well, we will be looking out for those possible surprises. Enrique, thank you so much for joining us. Now, in other news, Skype, once a household name in global internet calling, is officially retiring today. The shutdown of the service was announced by Microsoft back in February.
Skype will be permanently shut down on the 5th of May, ending a 21-year run that transformed how people connected across borders. Microsoft, which acquired Skype in 2011 for $8.5 billion, says the move will streamline its communication services and help focus resources on its now dominant Teams platform. Launched in 2003, Skype revolutionized audio and video calling and boasted hundreds of millions of users at its peak. But its popularity declined sharply with the rise of more mobile-friendly and reliable apps like Zoom and Slack. Industry analysts say Skype's underlying tech wasn't built for the smartphone era, a key factor in its fall from relevance. During the pandemic, Microsoft pushed Teams as its go-to business communication tool, integrating it with Office apps to win over corporate users, once Skype's core base. Microsoft declined to share current Skype usage figures. The platform had dropped to around 23 million monthly users by 2020, a far cry from the 150 million it had when Microsoft bought it. Skype users can now log into Teams with their existing credentials. Contacts and chats will be automatically migrated, and Teams is already serving more than 320 million monthly users globally. No job cuts are expected as part of the transition.
Prime Minister of Belarus, Alexander Turchin, has arrived in Azerbaijan for an official visit where he is set to meet Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev. He had already met with the Prime Minister Ali Asadov, where several documents were signed between the two countries. Focus of the visit is on boosting bilateral ties and economic cooperation. The Belarusian Prime Minister is also set to visit reconstruction sites in Fuzuli and Agdam, where Belarus will donate a utility vehicle to support rebuilding efforts. The EU has condemned Moscow's move to restart direct flights to Georgia's Russian-backed breakaway region of Abkhazia. Tbilisi has called the flights illegal and Russia's attempt to tighten the grip on the region. Our Nini Nikolaishvili has the details.
The European Union is condemning Russia's decision to restart direct flights to Abkhazia, calling it the clear violation of Georgia's sovereignty. The EU spokesperson, Enver El-Anouni, says that the flights, which have started on May 1st, were launched without Georgia's consent and break the international aviation rules. He says that the EU fully backs Georgia's territorial integrity and its recognized borders. The Sukhumi airport, where the flights were landed, has been closed to international traffic since early 1990s. By opening direct air links between Moscow and Abkhazia, Russia is seen as deepening its control over the region and further isolating it from Tbilisi. The analysts warn that this move could have fateful consequences for the restoration of de facto Georgian sovereignty over the territory and making it complicated to resolve these conflicts diplomatically. Tbilisi is also pushing back. The Georgian Foreign Ministry called these flights illegal and calls it the Moscow's wider efforts to tighten its grip on the breakaway regions. Now they're urging the international community to respond and demanding that Russia must respect the 2008 EU-brokered ceasefire. But some critics said that these statements may not be enough, warning that EU's influence is limited and Russia is steadily strengthening, holding on Abkhazia despite the international pressure. It's Nini Nikolaishvili, reporting from Tbilisi, News.
Uzbekistan and Afghanistan have signed a landmark agreement on the Amu Darya River Basin. The deal aims to ensure fair and rational use of water resources. Our Tamim Bahiz has more in Kabul.
Uzbekistan and Afghanistan have signed a significant agreement on the joint management of the Amu Darya River Basin and the efficient use of its water resources. The deal was formalized during a visit by the Uzbek delegation to Afghanistan, with both sides also discussing mutual trade. The signing of the agreement between Uzbekistan and Afghanistan opens up opportunities for creating joint working groups on water resource management, developing monitoring and data exchange mechanism, and introducing modern water conservation. This agreement marks a strategically important and timely step towards regional cooperation. In a region historically affected by water disputes, it reflects a growing willingness to manage shared resources through dialogue, coordination, and mutual respect. Beyond its environmental focus, the agreement links water management with agricultural trade, promoting both sustainability and economic interdependence, critical pillars for long-term regional stability and development. This is a promising example of how transboundary cooperation can turn potential conflict into opportunity for shared growth. This is Tamim Bahiz in Kabul for A News.
An Azerbaijani delegation headed by the country's Deputy Prime Minister Samir Sharipov visited Syria. According to the SANA agency, the Azerbaijani delegation met with interim president of Syria, Ahmed al-Shara, as well as the country's economy and industry minister, Mohammed Nidal al-Shar. Baku hosted an international conference dedicated to Azerbaijan's pharmaceutical industry. Talks and panels were held on topics of cooperation in the sector and the development of production.
Baku hosted the international conference, the Pharmaceutical Industry of Azerbaijan, yesterday, today and tomorrow, organised by Azerbaijan's Health Ministry and the Embassy of Hungary. Speakers highlighted the growth of Azerbaijan's pharmaceutical sector and new production sites. Hungarian Ambassador Tamás Torma noted the key role of pharmaceuticals in bilateral trade and stressed expanding academic cooperation. The pharmaceutical industry was highlighted as strategic for health and the economy, with special emphasis on Piralahi Industrial Park and the Azerbaijan Medical University's pharmacy faculty.
I would like to highlight that we have very strong political relationship between our two countries, characterized by a very strong bond between our leaders, and this strong partnership and sympathy, mutual sympathy, can be felt in every part of the society when I talk to Azerbaijani people. So there are very, very strong bonds. And what is interesting here, that pharmaceutical industry very well reflects the strengths and the intensivity and the friendly nature of our bonds between our countries.
Azerbaijan has invested over 6.9 billion manats in industrial zones, creating more than 10,000 jobs. The Piralahi Industrial Park, established in 2016, is the first specialized pharmaceutical zone, with 7 companies operating and expansion plans underway. Key projects include a joint plant with Turkish Gen Ilaç, Scandens in Herkmili, and Biopharmax in the Alyat Free Economic Zone. In 2024, pharmaceutical production rose by 81.5%, reaching 20 million manats, with medicine production up by 4%. To support local production, a tax and customs incentive mechanism has been implemented, granting exemptions for projects worth 50 million manats.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned to A News.